Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the service, and all the family that are around the service. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here this morning. I'm so happy to make it and so happy that the sun came out, even if it's still a little chilly with the wind. So just before coming, my nephew Brody, who's an 8-year-old, said to me, "Minter, what did you learn after 25 years of researching this story and making the film and the book, and what's it meant for you?" And I said, "Well, Bertie, that's a great question. Thank you for asking." And there are two things that it's made me do. The first is to try to provide meaningfulness in my life. And I think that's something we all need, especially in these days which are so conflicted, even divisive within each of the countries. And the second thing has been important is to establish really what are the true values for me. And I think in this world, we need to elevate the debate, and we need to focus on the important values: love, courage, and honor, which are values that this country was built on, and stop being so partisan and divisive even within our own country. So, in honor of my lovely nephew and my nieces, I wanted to make something a little bit short and sharp. And I came up with 3 things. Be thankful, be open, and be personal. And maybe it's because in the military there's a thing called Top Brass, or there's a great film called Top Gun. So the acronym I thought of was TOP. So be thankful. Be thankful for all of the people who have been in service. As they say, there's a saying that says, "Those who wait also serve." And so my words go to that broader ecosystem, not just the men and women who are on the battlefield, but all the people that are supporting. As Wendy mentioned, there were 404,000 Americans who were killed in the Second World War. That's 404,000 people, but also 404,000 families that were affected, people who were left behind. And it's often a part of the stories that are not so well covered. We tend to focus on the heroes who are out there. But there's a whole suffering that goes on for the people who are left behind, like my grandmother, like my father and my aunt. One of the traditions in Britain where I live is wearing a poppy, and it's something I'd like to encourage us to bring over here. It's a lovely tradition. In England today it's Armistice Day. Here it's Veterans Day, and they both resonate and could do with, I think, this poppy, which is a bipartisan or non-partisan way of supporting. So the second thing is be open, and be open to others that are different. In my journey, 25 years, I've come across so many different people and so many other people's stories, and to be open and to listen to them. And then be open to learn about other cultures. So we're in Virginia, and my grandfather was from South Carolina. And as you can tell from my accent, it's not exactly a perfect South Carolinian accent. But I learned the beauty of the Southern tradition. And it's not because I'm in Virginia that I'm saying this, because I feel very, very privileged to have come across the Southern hospitality and the notion of what is a Southern gentleman. And it's not because I'm in Virginia that I'm saying this, because I typically spend my time in New York, and I talk about this up in the North, with the Yankees. And the idea is we should be open to each other. We all have beautiful things to share with one another. Another thing I got to learn was about the Navy tradition and the Annapolis tradition. How many people are in the Navy here? So maybe about a third, perhaps? And it's not to disparage anyone else, because this is about being open to everybody. But in my journey, I was open to the amazing traditions in the Navy, and also in the Annapolis Military Academy, where my grandfather went and graduated in 1932. And I learned about their amazing sense of responsibility for each other, standing up for each other in hard times, and at other times laying down their lives to protect each other. I don't know what I would have done in those situations. So I can only hope that in this book, my film, my story are going to contribute to my service, because boy, do I have respect for them. About being open, though, is also being open to learning about your history, your family history. And if I hadn't been open and I had this opportunity that came with a telephone call, here I was a 26-year-old entrepreneur full of himself, as one youngsters tend to be. And this telephone call came in and said, "Could I speak to Minter Dial?" And I said, "Yes, this is he." "Oh, you sound very young." I said, "Well, I'm a 26-year-old. I'm not young." "No, but I wanted to invite you to your 65th school reunion." Wow. Uh-oh. But you got the wrong Minter Dial. And you might know it's a weird name. Anyway, so I realized that she was looking for my grandfather. I said, "Well, he died 60 years ago." "Well, so you mean you wanted to invite him to his school reunion? You mean you're in touch with other of his schoolmates from 1928? And anyway, by hanging on to this telephone call in 1991, thus began a 25-year journey. So it's about being open to the stories, the serendipity of life. And I'm going to finish with a third one, which is about being personal. 404,000 lives, 404,000 stories. And I have a thirst to listen to all of them. Because in the end of the day, if we study history in history class, we typically study the big battles. And, Battle of Agincourt, 1415, 3,500 cavalry rolled down, and we're talking big numbers. But at the end of the day, there are 3,500 individuals who fought. And so this is a very personal story about my grandfather. Graduated from Annapolis in 1932. And like all Annapolis graduates, was given a very specific ring. And whether you're from West Point or even from your colleges, these rings have a certain ring to them, a certain significance, which I learned a lot about. My grandfather, he becomes an officer, and he's in charge of the USS Napa in the Philippines when war breaks out. Then there's the Battle of Bataan, which lasts for 5 months, and the horrors of the Bataan Death March, which we would do well to cover in history books. And then there's the Battle of Corregidor, which is in May of 1942, and my grandfather's taken prisoner. And he, along with the other 80-odd thousand members, are taken prisoner, and he spends 2.5 years. And through those 2.5 years, I know for a fact that he kept that ring tightly to him, when it could have been an extra bowl of rice or an extra bowl of water. Then in December 15, 1944, he's put on a boat. It's called the Oryokomaru. And the Japanese didn't signal the type of boat this was. And the American airplanes off the USS Hornet bombed it. 300 men are killed. My grandfather miraculously survives that. He gets put on a tennis court and then gets taken on a train. And he gets put on another boat. And that boat goes to Taiwan. And then another series of planes come and bombs the Inora Maru on the 9th of January. Boats sunk, 300 prisoners are killed, amongst them my grandfather. So just before he dies, one of those Southerners with whom he'd been in prison for the last 2.5 years holds him, and he says to him, he says, "Doug, I'm not going to make it, but if you do survive, take this ring, give it to my wife, and tell her that I loved her." So Doug actually survives. There are 271 out of 1,619 men who survive, and Doug happened to be one of them. But it was a chaotic moment, and he loses the ring somewhere along the journey. But he does hold his promise, and he goes to see my grandmother in California when he's liberated in early 1946, and he says to her, "Lisa, I was with your husband when he died. I held him tight, and the last things he said was that he loved you. And he asked me to give you a ring, his Annapolis ring, which I lost, I'm afraid." So he goes off, and my grandmother, Lisa, was very upset. Then in 1962 in Korea, a Korean man is doing an excavation, and he finds some gold. He puts it in his pocket. Just before leaving, he's going to be searched. So he sees his friend and says, "Hey, Ye, come over here. I found some gold in the ring. Make a distraction so they don't search me. And if you can believe it, they get through. But Yi, his friend, had a second job, and his second job that night is a chauffeur. And his boss was an American admiral in the United States Navy, head of the Southeast Pacific Forces. And he says, sir, at my other job today, a friend of mine, he found a ring that looks just like yours. Really? Well, where is it? Well, he's melting it down, he said. So they're in the town of Incheon, north of Seoul in Korea. And they jump in the Jeep and they go find the guy. 350,000 people live in this town in May of '62. And they find the guy. Where's the ring? Ah, it's too late. I've already sold it over there. They jump in the Jeep, they go over and they find the ring. It's in the fire. The admiral says, get that ring out of the fire. They pull the ring out of the fire. The admiral then looks inside, and as you know, inscribed was the name. The last name of my grandfather was inside, Dial. On the outside it said 32. Pressy says, oh my God, my best friend. Pressy was on the same line of lacrosse as my grandfather from 1929 to 1932 at the Naval Academy. And he was my grandfather's usher at his wedding. And his wife was my grandmother's maid of honor. So the ring came back. And then my grandmother gets the ring back, and the last wish is received. And then that was permission for her to die. So this is the journey that I've been on. And what I encourage you all is to look for your own journey, your own stories, because there are many beautiful stories out there. And oftentimes, it can just take a little moment for you to be inspired, motivated, to go discover your stories, because in the 25 years of research that I've done, literally 4 or 5 people died within a week of my meeting them. And if I hadn't met them, maybe I wouldn't have had this story to tell you. So it's with my hope that it encourages you to go after your story. Be open to others, even if they have a diverse opinion, because we have to remember that this country is a beautiful country with really foundational principles that are universal and important, and we need to be encouraging those. So if my thing is top, thankful, open, and personal, the T is probably the most important. Be thankful for the men and women who are in service. Be thankful for the liberties that we have in this beautiful country. Because gosh, if you haven't talked to somebody who was a prisoner of war or fought in the fight, we don't appreciate what great land we live in and the amount of liberties that we have. So with that, I hope you haven't got too cold sitting down there listening. It's been an honor to have this opportunity to address you. And yeah, God bless America.